December 17th, 1950. A single envelope lands on the desk of a restless writer in New York City. Inside, a letter. Typed, wild, and thousands of words long. The writer, Jack Kerouac, doesn't yet know that what he's holding will change the course of American literature. The letter's author? His friend, Neal Cassady. A man with the energy of a thunderstorm, the soul of a poet, and the chaos of the open road. This letter, known today as the Joan Anderson letter, would vanish for over half a century, believed to be lost forever. But when it resurfaced decades later, it revealed not just a friendship, but the birth of a movement. This is the story of the lost letter that created On the Road and ignited the Beat generation. The story begins with two friends, Jack Kerouac and Neal Cassady. Cassady was born in Denver, 1926. Raised on the streets, half outlaw, half philosopher. He had an endless curiosity for life, for cars, for people, for the truth. Jack Kerouac, the son of French-Canadian immigrants, was trying to find his voice as a writer. His first novels were beautiful, but constrained. Too neat, too controlled. Then came Neal. They met, wrote letters, swapped ideas, shared sleepless nights in diners and cheap hotel rooms, talking about freedom, writing, love, and madness. And then one day, Neal Cassady sat down at his typewriter and began to write a letter that would change everything. Cassady's letter was no ordinary note between friends. It was a torrent of energy, 16,000 words of pure, spontaneous thought. He told the story of a weekend in Denver, his love affair with a woman named Joan Anderson, his mistakes, his wild drives through the night, his regrets, his confessions. But it wasn't the content that made it special. It was the voice. Cassady wrote the way people think, jumping from memory to desire to fear to joy without stopping to breathe. No commas, no corrections, just emotion. Kerouac later said, "It was the greatest piece of writing I ever saw. A whole short novel, alive and true." Reading it, Kerouac had a revelation. He realized writing didn't have to be polished or perfect. It just had to be real. That raw, unfiltered energy would soon evolve into the style he called spontaneous prose, and eventually become the heartbeat of his most famous novel, On the Road. But like all great legends, this one nearly vanished. In the mid-1950s, after Kerouac had read the letter many times, it was sent to a publisher named Gerd Stern. Then, it disappeared. Some said it fell off a houseboat in Sausalito, drifting into the San Francisco Bay. Others whispered it was stolen, or misplaced, or deliberately hidden. For decades, the Joan Anderson letter became a ghost story among writers, a mythical document everyone talked about, but no one had seen. Kerouac mourned its loss. In interviews, he mentioned it with a kind of ache. If only I still had that letter. Scholars called it the holy grail of beat literature. And for over 60 years it was gone. Until one day, it came back. In 2012, an old box of manuscripts was discovered in a dusty filing cabinet in Oakland, California. Inside that box was the letter. Perfectly preserved, typed on yellowed paper, still alive with Neal Cassady's wild rhythm. The lost words had finally resurfaced, and the literary world went silent. In 2017, Emory University acquired the letter for over $200,000, ensuring its place in history. For scholars, it wasn't just a recovery of paper. It was the rediscovery of a voice. The missing puzzle piece that proved how On the Road and the Beat generation were born not from novels, but from a letter between friends. The rediscovery confirmed what Kerouac always said. The Beats weren't trying to write perfect literature. They were trying to live honestly. The Joan Anderson letter showed that beauty could live in chaos, that truth could exist in imperfection. Cassady's voice wasn't educated or academic. It was human. It was the same voice that millions of people would later hear in On the Road. The letter became proof that art doesn't always begin in classrooms or publishers' offices. Sometimes it starts in a messy apartment, on a cheap typewriter, written by a man trying to understand himself. And maybe that's why it still resonates today. The story of this lost letter reminds us of something powerful, that our words, even the ones we think are small, can outlive us. That in a forgotten drawer or a basement box or an old diary, there might be a story waiting to change someone's life. The Joan Anderson letter wasn't meant to be famous. It was a man's confession to his friend, a glimpse into his soul. But that's what made it great, because truth, written honestly, always finds its way back. 60 years lost, one letter, a friendship, a revolution in words, and the reminder that sometimes the smallest voices echo the loudest through.